Hello and welcome to the 2021 World AIDS Day Memorial Service. My name is Luke Gallagher and I've had the honour of hosting this important community event held each year here at the Positive Living Centre in Melbourne, Australia for the past 12 years. COVID-19 has continued to present significant challenges to the entire world, and these have had an impact on us all. While we can't be together in person again, we are proud to continue the tradition of remembering the lives of all those we have loved and lost through the HIV and AIDS epidemic, in this beautiful space that is the Positive Living Centre. These beautiful glass shards, suspended in the main hall, memorialise the names of those with HIV who have died in the last 4 decades. In this space and at this time, we encourage you to celebrate and honour the lives that were lived and rejoice in the lives of those who continue to touch yours, while maintaining a sense of hope for the future.
Good afternoon, I'm Todd Fernando, the Victorian Commissioner for LGBTIQ+ communities. I'm a descendant of the Kalari peoples of the Wiradjuri Nation and a proud queer Aboriginal man. I'm speaking to you today from Victoria's Positive Living Centre on the lands of the Kulin Nations. I'd like to acknowledge the ancestors of the lands I'm on today and acknowledge the ancestors of the lands we're all on today across Victoria and Australia. I also want to acknowledge that I will be speaking about Aboriginal people who are no longer living. I'm a medical anthropologist by trade, and a lot of the focus of my work has been on our history for both me as an Aboriginal man and a queer man living in Australia. The world has dramatically changed since 1788 and the initial European invasion of this country, when epidemics were frequently sparked by international colonisation. As Neil Blewett, Federal Minister for Health during the height of HIV/AIDS said, indeed a range of diseases were unleashed upon Australia's Aborigines in that year, and it is clear that the mortality inflicted upon them, especially through smallpox, had the effect of facilitating the European advancement across the continent. 2 centuries later, Australians of whatever origin faced the new epidemics of AIDS. This epidemic had encircled the globe because of the volume of international travel and our now global communities, which marks the modern age in which, unlike 1788, days, not months, separated the more distant parts of the earth. Possibly unimagined by Neil, COVID-19 will be another pandemic that ravaged this country and the globe. AIDS arrived in Australia before I was born, so, like a lot of people my age, it's always been a part of a personal landscape. Like many, realising who I was, I heard too many messages that tried to fill me with shame. As I claimed my identities, I did so with pride. I connected into LGBTIQ+ communities and queer Aboriginal and First Nations communities and learnt of the great work that had already been happening. I want to acknowledge the work of many queer Aboriginal men that came before me. I cherished the times I spent with Neville Fasula and with Rodney Jungle Williams, both HIV-positive Aboriginal advocates who are no longer with us. I'll forever cherish the time I spent with them. Those were the first times I got to hear the stories of my Aboriginal gay HIV-positive elders. They were wonderfully loud and annoying and persistent and outrageous, in a time where, even more than now, it was considered wrong to be open about being gay and having HIV. Their work was impossible to separate from their identities, and like me, they were intersectionality personified. Intersectionality isn't a buzzword, it's an attempt to capture the integrated complexities of our lived experiences. They were intersectional before it became a term. Because of many families and communities across Australia who have requested those aspects of their lives never be mentioned, there are many men who died from AIDS that I can't mention. In my world, you honour your ancestors and your elders. Our respect for our elders is part of the pain we feel at the stolen generation. We miss those people who would have and should have been our guides and holders of our custodial wisdom, taken from us in yet another act of colonisation. I wonder why, as a young queer man, we don't speak of our lost generations. Where is the outcry that we had a generation or two taken from us by HIV/AIDS? I feel this as a deep personal loss. Why aren't people mourning the fact that our lives would be so much richer now if we still had the LGBTIQ+ elders that we lost to that other epidemic to turn to? To ask questions about our history, to learn from their lessons as well. I honour the long-term survivors with HIV, and I learn from them. They are a lesson in resilience and defiance. For me, World AIDS Day is about honouring those we've lost and mourning the lost generations that AIDS took from us. On this World AIDS Day, I also want to pay tribute to the thousands in Australia and the millions worldwide who continue to live and thrive with HIV. The Aboriginal gay men working for our rights, along with all of those we've lost and their legacies, I believe are now secured, this time as ancestors. Thank you.
My father's name was Michael John Dunham. He was an English immigrant, 6 foot tall, charismatic, handsome, robust, and a church minister. In 1974, he was rushed to emergency surgery with a ruptured appendix, which he had walked around with for 3 days. He was in hospital for many, many months, and over this time, he received copious amounts of blood transfusions. Over the next 7 years, my family and I watched as our father wasted away. The doctors, they had no answers. On the 28th of December, 1981, in our little home in Brisbane, my father, 47, a wasted man of only 8 stone, passed away of an undiagnosed disease. A few months later, in early 1982, the world gave it a name. We called it AIDS. This year, my family and I remember the 40th year of my father's passing. And this song I would like to dedicate to my family and my father and all those who died without knowing and those who were left behind without any answers. I heard your back against the wall. I heard you couldn't take much more. And still you smile, but you can't fake it anymore. And you couldn't call. I heard you couldn't sleep at night. And in your dreams of fear, you're far too tired to fight. But maybe, just maybe, it'll be alright. And I'm here to help you through the night. And I will call your name. I heard you crying again. Hey, you'll be fine. You're wanting time. I heard that all's not well with you. There's nothing I can say and nothing I can do. But maybe, just maybe, it'll be alright. And I can see you through the night. And I will cry our tears until they're dry. Hey, you'll be fine. You're wanting time. Hey. you're wanting time.
Every year, on December the 1st, we commemorate World AIDS Day and reflect upon our worldwide response to the HIV and AIDS epidemic. The global theme this year is End Inequalities, End AIDS, End Pandemics. This highlights the urgent need to end the inequalities that drive HIV and AIDS and other pandemics around the world, as well as being central to ending the HIV epidemic. Tackling inequalities will advance the human rights of key populations and people who are living with HIV, make societies better prepared to beat COVID-19 and other pandemics, and support economic recovery and stability. This year has been especially poignant as we mark 40 years since the first 5 cases of what later became known as AIDS were officially reported, and honour the more than 36 million people who have died from AIDS-related illness globally since the start of the epidemic. With this in mind, the National World AIDS Day theme this year is 40 years of HIV. Where to next? In 2021, we reflect upon the history of the domestic and international HIV and AIDS epidemic, from the first reported cases in 1981 to the present, where advances in HIV prevention, care, and treatment offer hope for a long, healthy life to people who are living with or at risk for HIV and AIDS. The first Australian case of HIV was in 1981. Soon after these first cases emerged, activists from the gay community began talking to each other. They formed networks to share what little information there was about the causes of a frightening new illness affecting gay men. Public meetings were held. Early community leaders sought to raise awareness, speaking out against media-fueled hysteria and calling for research to be accelerated to gain a better understanding of the illness. Characterising Australia's response to HIV and AIDS was the emergence from the grassroots and the involvement of partnership. By the mid-1980s, the early work of gay community activists had seen community-based AIDS councils formed to provide peer-led prevention and support, and to galvanise hundreds of volunteers to help with this work. These community-based efforts complemented the bringing together of political leaders, governments, people living with HIV, researchers, and health professionals. This vision of partnership gained wide support and soon became the cornerstone of Australia's HIV response, one which caught global attention as an example of partnership in action. The Victorian AIDS Council was established in 1983 after a public meeting was called to express concern at government inaction over an emerging health issue. The community and clinical response was driven by those infected and affected by HIV. Led essentially by the gay community, people were mobilised and engaged directly with governments, hospital administrators, and allied health services to create a world-leading model of care. This approach to supporting care and independent living in the community has been the basis of the organisation's work, but is also an approach reflected in the activities and priorities of many HIV and AIDS organisations in Australia. In 1985, the first support volunteer care team was established in Victoria with great support from Fairfield Hospital staff. In 1987, a well-known advertising program was launched, including television advertisements that featured the Grim Reaper rolling a 10-pin bowling ball toward a group of people standing in the place of the pins. These advertisements garnered a lot of attention and were effective, if controversial, when released. However, the campaign also contributed to stigma for those living with the virus, particularly in the gay community, that architects of the advertisement later regretted. On December the 1st, 1988, the first annual World AIDS Day proposed by the World Health Organization was held to focus attention on fighting the virus. The theme was a world united against AIDS. The Australian AIDS Memorial Quilt Project was established in this year and first displayed on World AIDS Day. People Living with HIV/AIDS Victoria, now known as Living Positive Victoria, was established in the same year, providing support and advocacy, workshops, peer support, and activities to improve the well-being of those living with HIV.
My name's David Popel, and I was diagnosed HIV positive in 1985. The only person I'd come out to as HIV positive was my partner. No one else knew. I was petrified of walking into the Positive Living Centre on a day like this. I was scared of being looked at, stared at. I ran into an old friend and we got talking, and he said, "Oh, I've got a secret to tell you." And I said, "What is it?" And he says, "I'm HIV positive." And I said, "Well, so am I." He said, "Have you ever been to the PLC?" And this is when it had first moved here to Commercial Road. I said, "No." He said, "Well, I'll take you over there." I said, "I don't want to go in, I don't want to go in." He said, "No, I'll take you in and we'll do this together." And I've never looked back since. I found a whole new community. I found a whole lot of new friends, all going through the same thing, the same problems and everything. And it was actually my partner who said, "Let's go to World AIDS Day." And I said, "As long as you hold my hand." He said, "I will." And I walked in here and it was like as if everybody had opened their arms up and said, "Welcome." And I've never looked back since. I live with a lot of comorbidities because of the virus or the medications and everything else like that. There's an awful lot of pills to take. There's this regime that I've got to do every morning. My younger brother Colin said to me, he said, "How can you take so many pills at once?" He said, I said, "Well, if I didn't," I said, "I'd be standing here all day." Yeah, I live with it. I don't let the HIV define who I am. I don't let it rule my life. I live with the virus. The younger generation, who, if they happen to become HIV positive, they've got some pills to take that they have to take for the rest of their life. They won't suffer the problems like we have, or like me, with this face, what they call the thumbprint look. Lipodystrophy I suffered, where all the fat cells shrunk. And I've had so much stuff pumped into my face, it's unbelievable. It should be full of plastic. They don't have that to worry about anymore. There is still stigma out there. I personally see it on a regular basis when I'm out and about, walking down the street, only because I've got this look. And it comes from members of our own community. They will give you that look, then they turn to their partner and whisper, and they'll have a look. Yeah. I used to walk down the street with my head down. I walked always with my head down. And my partner said to me one day, he said, "Walk with your head up. Walk proud." He said, "They're the ones with the problem. You're not the problem. They are. And if they don't like it, tough. But be proud of who you are. And because I'm here with you." And so, and that's what I do now. I don't give a toss. It's a shock to be diagnosed as being HIV positive. And it's a setback. And mentally it could be debilitating. But at the same time, look at the positives. Look at the positive side of things. Look at the positive sides of life. Grab hold of that positivity and run with it. Don't walk, run with it. And enjoy your life. Because that's what being HIV positive is all about. It's grasping hold of the positivity. If you can only walk with it, walk with it. But if you can run, well, you damn well run with it. And be happy. Get on with your life.
The new decade saw ACT UP, the AIDS Coalition to Unleash Power, formed, an activist organisation fighting for those with HIV and AIDS and their access to free medicine and new forms of treatment in Australia. In 1991, the Visual AIDS Artists Caucus launched the Red Ribbon Project to create a symbol of compassion for people living with HIV and their carers. The Red Ribbon became an international symbol of AIDS awareness. The unique Victorian Red Ribbon was the first and forerunner for the multitude of ribbons that have proliferated within the community since the early 1990s. The ribbon was designed this way to stand out by Melburnian Brent Lacey. The ribbon is an inverted V, so that when a cure for HIV is discovered, the ribbon can be turned upside down to be a symbolic V for victory over HIV. The visible safety pin, where you pin the ribbon onto your clothes, is an important symbol in itself, identifying people who only had safe sex. In 1991, there were huge public protests in Victoria against the possible closure of Fairfield Hospital, which continued to provide care for people with HIV and AIDS in a unique and non-stigmatising way. The staff and volunteers of many organisations joined the protests. The Positive Living Centre opened in 1993 in St Kilda, housing the Gay Men's Community Health Centre Clinic. The PLC's main aim was, and continues to be, to enhance the health and well-being of HIV-positive people through the provision of social, emotional, recreational and skills-based services and activities. Over 800 people had been diagnosed with HIV in Victoria by this time, and Victorian community support programs have provided over 600 individual care teams and other support. In 1996, legislation in Victoria was enacted which made it illegal to discriminate on the grounds of HIV and AIDS infection. The International AIDS Conference in Vancouver highlighted benefits of early intervention, combination therapy, and viral load testing. Despite years of protest action, Fairfield Hospital was closed. The Alfred Hospital and the Royal Melbourne Hospital officially took over the HIV and AIDS services. During 1997, treatment options took another step forward with the introduction of powerful HIV-fighting drugs called protease inhibitors. Highly active antiretroviral therapy became the new standard of HIV care, dramatically improving the health and well-being of HIV-positive people. HIV post-exposure prophylaxis also became available for the prevention of HIV for those who may have been exposed.
My name is Bruce Fitzgerald. I'm 61 years old, identify as an Aboriginal, born and bred in Wurundjeri country, and I've been HIV positive for 30 years now. World AIDS Day means a lot to me. It's, first of all, it's a recognition that HIV AIDS is still happening, and it helps the world recognise that that problem is still going on. I think that's very important. Secondly, it's a day to remember the people past. I've got a lot of friends that have died of AIDS. It's a very solemn day in that sort of respect, but also it's a day where you celebrate that you've survived for another year with the HIV virus. Coming from Melbourne and being very lucky to be part of the Positive Living Centre, I found World AIDS Day to be a great day of celebration, and reflection. Yeah, I believe the significance has changed greatly. At the start, it was to highlight how many deaths was happening throughout the world, and how medication and preventative measures were needed. A needle exchange program and free condoms. Them two things were of incredible value at stopping the spread of HIV/AIDS, especially here in Australia. Yeah, it's more. You can be more reflective now, and you can also celebrate that you're still alive now. I think they're the two main changes. Not that we've forgotten the people that have died. That's why we have World AIDS Day as well. But World AIDS Day allows us to, yeah, it has changed. That's what I'm saying, yeah. Oh, in today's terms, being HIV positive is a badge of honour for me. I've survived 30 years with it. I'm living a good life. I'm healthy. I keep fit. I've got a beautiful daughter, and she's got two beautiful grandkids, two beautiful children. So yeah, it's not always been like that, but yeah, at the moment it's going along all right. I walked in my doctor's office and she was crying. I said to her, "So I've got hepatitis C." She's gone, "And the other one too." Yeah, it was pretty devastating. I had to go home and tell my partner at the time, who was 6 months pregnant with my daughter, that I had HIV. One of the biggest problems for me was that my partner's mother was a receptionist at Fairfield House, where I'd have to go every 3 months to get my medication and speak to her. Yeah, she was never very impressed about that. I was very lucky that I didn't pass the virus on to my partner or my child. But yeah, it's been a long journey, and yeah, I believe that yeah, there has been some changes. I believe that people don't think they can catch HIV anymore just by you being in the same room with them. People don't believe anymore that you can catch HIV by touching them. I think a lot of people now understand how HIV is contracted. So that brings down the stigma a little bit. That's the only real sort of stigma I've faced. I find most women that I've gone out with have been very understanding about it. I'm a big advocate of that if you're on medication, you can't pass the virus on if you've got no viral load. So yeah. But that's only been the last few years like the last 10 years where that's come out. Before that, condom usage was a problem, I must say. Because I'm a long-term survivor, I don't know about the short-term people, but because I'm a long-term survivor, it seems that people respect me more now because I've survived. When I first got it, I was just a dirty, rotten junkie with AIDS. Yeah, so that's how things have changed a real lot in the last 30 years. All I can say is keep taking your medication, keep fighting. People like me are proof that you can survive it if you keep fighting.
HIV and AIDS quickly became a more severe problem for several countries in the region around Australia. This led Australian governments and non-government organisations to place an increasing emphasis on international initiatives, particularly aimed at limiting the spread of the virus. The Australian government introduced an HIV and AIDS prevention program in the middle of the decade that was targeted at our neighbouring countries. This program, called Meeting the Challenge, ran until 2010. Australian non-government organisations such as the AIDS Trust were also involved in international efforts to combat the virus. Locally, in Melbourne, the Positive Living Centre moved to the newly renovated Braille Library in 2002, providing a much larger space and enhanced services for people living with HIV. Early in the 2000s, the Legends portraits were commissioned depicting the brave men and women who stood up as leaders, as activists and as thinkers in the history of HIV and AIDS and how it unfolded in our Victorian community. A body of knowledge was a photographic exhibition from 2006 that took the public inside the emotions of women affected by the virus. The series of powerful photographs featured written messages on the bodies of women living with HIV.
My name is Bernadette Roberts. I've been HIV positive for 25 years. Look, it was a terrible shock and something I wasn't expecting. I didn't know really anything about HIV. So it was a huge shock and just learning to live with it. But I think now after 20 years, I think I've just come to accept it. And to be honest, I just don't think about it. So I've just accepted it. I've learned to live with it. It's a chronic illness that I manage with medication. And I don't ever really think about being HIV positive. It's just not something that I think about. Unfortunately, with stigma, I really haven't seen a lot of changes in 25 years. I'm hearing stories of people still experience stigma in the healthcare profession. We're friends, we're family. So stigma is still there and people, women are just still experiencing stigma. So I don't really think I've seen a lot of change. Personally, I think I have experienced it with, when I've told friends and family. I haven't really told too many family members, and that they were fine, they accepted it. Look, in the early days, I did experience that with certain people I've told, so I probably chose not to tell too many people about it. Yeah, look, the treatment and the medications improved greatly. The antivirals have gone from, 25 years ago, people were taking 6 tablets a day. Now they're taking 1. Some of the combinations of, 3 tablets in 1 tablet. So often people are just taking 1 tablet. So the medication has really improved greatly. There's not enough messages in the news or the media, or like there were the Grim Reaper ads back in the 90s where they were pretty confronting, and it's not going to turn into AIDS if you're taking your antiretrovirals or taking your medication and you stay pretty healthy and you can reach undetected or close enough to undetected. So, but I feel just to get the message out about stigma, I think we just more campaigns just about stigma, definitely. I feel really strongly about that. Positive women were probably the big one that I came in contact with, and I think that really helped me great emotionally and mentally, just to meet other women and feel there's other women out there like you that have experienced in this. So that was a really big thing for me, and I think that really helped me greatly. I think the retreats were, like a women's retreat away. So, but there wasn't really much like there is now. I mean, now they have the LPV and positive women run Phoenix for women. They run Phoenix for men. So they get a lot of information. They get a professional to talk and give them information and just the support, and there was just nothing around like that. Well, when I first got diagnosed, I was going to Fairfield Hospital and I was seeing an infectious disease specialist, and my peer support worker at the time said, you need to actually see a HIV specialist, which I had no idea about. So she put me on to very good HIV specialists at Prahran Market Clinic, who I still see today, and then because before I saw him, which was probably 1.5 to 2 years, I wasn't on any treatments, and I was getting quite sick and ill, and getting run down, getting flus, just getting colds. I was just sick all the time. So once I saw him and he put me on treatments, that just made a huge difference. And also, 96 was the year that they introduced viral load testing. That was never introduced before. So I think in 97 when I saw him, I think probably 97, he did a viral load test and my viral load came back at 900,000 counts. So then he put me on the treatment straight away. I just started to feel so much better. I stopped getting ill, stopped getting sick, and just my quality of life really improved. Look, I think the first 6 months or the first year or the first 2 years, your emotions are like a roller coaster. It's up and down. And then once I think you learn to accept it and you take your medication, you become undetected or close to undetected, I think you can have a really good quality of life. There's no reason why you can't get married. There's no reason why you can't have children. So you can just live a normal life. You can work. So you can reach your full potential, definitely.
Victorian AIDS Council celebrated the 30th anniversary of the organisation in 2013 with the publication of the book and website Under the Red Ribbon, and celebrated its 35th anniversary with the announcement of changing to Thorn Harbour Health later in the decade. AIDS 2014, the International AIDS Conference, held in Melbourne, was a premier gathering for those working in the field of HIV, as well as policymakers, persons living with HIV, and other individuals committed to ending the pandemic. The conference had the largest and most diverse cultural program yet, including more than 150 events and activities. Victoria's pre-exposure prophylaxis trial was launched in 2016 with over 1,300 same-sex attracted men signed up to access the HIV prevention pill. PrEP became accessible in 2018. By 2017, for the first time ever, more than half of the global population living with HIV were receiving antiretroviral treatment, a record of 19.5 million people. Undetectable equals untransmittable, or U equals U, refers to the fact that people who take antiretroviral therapy for HIV daily, as prescribed, and who achieve and maintain an undetectable viral load cannot sexually transmit the virus to an HIV-negative partner. Organisations around the world endorse U equals U. This anti-stigma slogan became a defining message of the HIV response in many well-resourced countries. If we reflect upon the past 40 years, we can remember the activism and cultural flashpoints that put HIV and AIDS into the public consciousness. The death of Hollywood actor Rock Hudson, a gloveless Princess Diana shaking hands with patients in the UK, a young Eve Van Grofhurst ostracised by her own community, all contributed to shape awareness of the epidemic. We can remember the mid-1990s when a medical breakthrough came, the development of antiretroviral treatment that turned HIV and AIDS into a manageable condition. Today, more than 2/3 of those living with HIV are receiving that treatment. There have been remarkable developments made in medicine over the past 4 decades. Today, a person aged 25, diagnosed HIV positive and able to access medication right away is expected to have the quality of life and lifespan equal to that of an HIV negative person. This represents a profound change from where we were in 1981 and raises the optimistic question, where to next? Anthony Crowley is a multi-award-winning playwright, composer, director, designer, dramaturg, and educator. His body of work includes musicals, opera, cabaret, plays, devised theatre, performance, and several short works, in addition to corporate, government, and community projects. In 1995, Anthony was engaged by the City of Melbourne to research, write, and rehearse a new composition for the AIDS Candlelight Vigil that was performed by the Melbourne Gay and Lesbian Chorus and other community members. On a personal note, I was part of this chorus and have vivid memories of this incredible event. The Melbourne Gay and Lesbian Chorus is an award-winning choir with a passionate commitment to camaraderie through music. Over an amazing history spanning more than 2 decades, the choir has challenged stereotypes and stood as proud role models for those struggling with their sexuality or identity. They have been and continue to be an important part of this event. With a focus on looking at the 40-year history of HIV, we present for you now this original recording of the song We Can Grow Old Together by Anthony Crowley from the AIDS Candlelight Vigil 1995.
Every candle, every story, every light, every hope, every kiss should be sweet, never hard. Every touch should be strong, never the last. We can love, we can share. Tomorrow's love can always be there. If we believe it's never far, never gone. We can grow old together forever. Though the years may leave, we will never part. There may be stars between us, loneliness, nothing else will change. We can grow old together. Every day we will search, we will dream. Every tear leads to the time when we'll be free. Nothing's right, nothing's fair. Words won't ever heal the pain that we bear. We need more, we need faith, we need hope, we need to believe. We can grow old together forever. Though the years may leave, we will never part. There may be stars between us, loneliness, nothing else will change. We will grow old together. We'll be strong, never give in. We will fight, we will win. We will have each other every single day. We'll never be alone. We can grow old together forever. Though the years may leave, we will never part. There may be stars between us, loneliness, nothing else will change. Nothing else will change. The candles we burn, the faith that we keep, the days that we lose, the hours we weep. Soon it must end, soon it will pass, then we will be old together at last. Every candle, every story, every light, every hope.
On this World AIDS Day, we unite surrounded by the panels of the AIDS Memorial Quilt and the suspended shards at the Positive Living Centre to remember those who have died and reflect upon and celebrate what they brought into our lives. Each person whose life we commemorate was a unique individual. We honour them. We value them, who they were and how they remain part of us. Marg Hayes is the coordinator of the Catholic AIDS Ministry, which provides wellbeing support to and advocates for people living with HIV and AIDS and their loved ones. Marg has strong links with various peer-based positive communities and provides pastoral care and has been officiating the remembrance ceremony over the past 2 decades.
We come together to remember and honour the people we have loved and lost to HIV, AIDS over the past 40 years. These people, who have been very important in our lives and who remain a part of us, even though they are not physically present. We also come to celebrate the many medical advances that now allow people to live with HIV. And we will leave as people of hope, for we know that those who have loved us want us to go on with our lives. Again, this year, we are gathering in front of our various electronic devices, devices that have assisted us to stay in touch with each other and come together even though we are apart. So let us create our space, our sacred space, a place of quiet and peace, which allows our memories of those we love to come into this space, for our loved ones to be here with us. If you have brought a candle with you, please light it now, remembering as you do so the very special person or people whom you love and are remembering. Candles, symbols of peace and hope. Their light is soft and gentle, and yet in the dark can be very bright. Our memories of those we love touch us in all sorts of ways, just like the light of a candle. Candles come out for celebrations. We celebrate. We celebrate the great advances in care for people living with HIV, developments that enable people to live life to the full. We celebrate that treatment is reaching many people who have not previously had access. We celebrate that these innovations are improving the quality of life for many. We remember. We remember the many people we have known who have died because of this virus. We remember partners, sons, daughters, parents, brothers, sisters, friends. People we have loved and who have loved us and who have left us as a result of HIV and AIDS. So let us take a moment of silence to think back to the beginning of HIV and AIDS in our lives. 40 years ago, this virus was named and entered the lives and concerns of many people. We remember the researchers, the clinicians, the activists, the community leaders, and those impacted by the virus, who worked tirelessly over the past 4 decades. Let us remember the people who died before treatments were discovered. Silently, we remember these people and we remember our loved ones. We remember and honour people from our community who have died in the past year. As I read their names, Lucy and Shane will light a candle for each person. Some have had their names added to the shards that hang at PLC. We remember Adam Chapman, Glenn Hargrave, Stuart Smith, David Kuhlman, Mark Britzi, Sir David Birmingham, James Speed, Jodie Horowitz, Ron, Sue, James, Joe, Mark, Lily, Frank, Serge, Andrew, and Stefan. Allow these candles that are burning brightly here, these candles which Lucy and Shane have lit, and the candles burning beside you at home, to honour that person who has been and who remains very special to you in your life. These candles show us the power of a tiny flame, especially when united together. I am sure that those we are honouring want us to go on with light and hope in our hearts. And we can leave as people of hope, as our loved ones would want us to leave. Hopeful that the advances in treatments will mean that all people will be able to live well, that the number of new infections will diminish to the point of no new infections, that there will be an end to the stigma and discrimination associated with HIV.
This is for David Coolman, most beautiful soul I've ever known and the best brother ever. Love you, darling.
I light this candle for Robert Borg, Sam Penny, Simon Zanker, Darren Noyes, Ellie and Chad.
Hi guys, let me tell you, just letting people know that this horrible disease has killed my best friends, one Burgess and the other one Stephen Stewart. Rest in peace, rest your souls. Yeah, let's do it all. Amen. Cheers.
lighting these candles in memory of Brett Tyndall and Kathleen Kay, researchers, activists, great human beings.
I light this candle in memory of Vaughan Neal, who died 12 days after his 24th birthday, all too young. In memory of Vaughan, on behalf of his mum and dad, Christina and John Neal. To Vaughan.
Hello, my name is Gilbert Douglas. I'm a Zimbabwean living in Australia. I'm a dancer, dance teacher, and choreographer. I learned dance in Zimbabwe at a place called National Ballet, and ended up dancing for a company called Tumbuka for close to 20 years. Ended up being its artistic director before I moved to Australia. The work that I'll be showing is called Chenura, which is a Shona word which means cleansing. Chenura is a ceremony that's done when someone passes away, and after a year they invite the spirit of the person to come back and be part of their lives, and they become part of the family and they take care of their family, I believe. And the work I did with Tumbuka Dance Company in Zimbabwe, and with 5 dancers. And it's a work that was inspired by some traditional dances that are done in Zimbabwe, but one of the dances is mainly done by people who are migrants in Zimbabwe, coming from Malawi, and it's a traditional dance that has many components, and mostly they dance it wearing masks, and that inspired the whole dance because of the tradition associated with it, but also because of the amount of people that were passing away during the time of the HIV AIDS pandemic in Zimbabwe, and because no one was taking care of what happens after. Traditionally, after a year, you do a ceremony, but after the pandemic, it became a harder lift for people to be able to do any ceremony, especially for themselves, because the ceremony is not only for the past ones, it's also for the people that are living, to comfort each other, because of the amount of death that is associated with, or that was associated with HIV. It sort of became impossible.
Hi, I'm John Jackson, and it's been my privilege to perform here at the Positive Living Centre for the World AIDS Day Candlelight Memorial since 2009. So this is my 13th appearance, but the second that we've had to do online. I hope that by next year things will be different and we'll be back, but with a live audience in attendance. The current pandemic has given the rest of the world a taste of what it's like to live with a deadly virus in their midst. Imagine if we had to stage fundraisers for the COVID-19 vaccines like we've had to do for HIV AIDS. We still don't have a vaccine for that. Anyway, it's always been my pleasure to sing here. Even though I have retired from professional singing, I'm always willing to use my talents to help out where I can. Enjoy!
Et c'est bien vaincre le pêle si lui convient de refuser. Rien n'y fait menace oublier. L'un parle bien, l'autre c'était. Et c'est l'autre que je préfère. Il n'a rien dit, mais il m'y plaît. L'amour. Bohème, il n'a jamais connu de loin. Si tu n'aimes pas, je t'aime. Si je te prends garde à toi. Si tu n'aimes pas, si tu ne m'aimes pas, je t'aime. Mais si je t'aime, prends garde à toi. Pardon.
Hello. Yeah, this is me. This is me. Oh yeah, thanks for ringing me back, mate. Yeah, it was about your Tirana. Yeah, is it a Peter Brock Tirana? Yeah, because I've always wanted one of those. I love Brocky. Yeah, I've got to have a word with the wife first, but I'm in the middle of something at the moment. I'll call you back. Okay, bye, mate.
L'amour, 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 l'amour est enfant de bohème. Il n'a jamais connu de loi. Si tu ne m'aimes pas, je t'aime. Si je te prends garde à toi. Si tu n'aimes pas, si tu ne m'aimes pas, je t'aime. Mais si je t'aime, prends garde à toi.
We have gathered on this occasion to provide the opportunity to honour and to celebrate those we have lost to HIV and AIDS, and to remember how they enriched our lives. We remembered as one community, forever bound together in this place to stand in quiet contemplation. We remembered and reflected on HIV through the past 4 decades and celebrate the work of those affected communities, clinicians, researchers, volunteers, carers and advocates. We remembered the challenging history of HIV, and we leave here determined to challenge stigma, prejudice and discrimination with a commitment to making a difference for all people now living with HIV. My name is Luke Gallagher, and it has truly been my honour and a privilege to be part of these proceedings. Thanks for being part of it too.